Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Politics here at the Hindu with me, Nistula Hebbar, where we unpack the news making the headlines in domestic politics. This week was the big showdown in Parliament between the opposition parties and the BJP over the findings of the Hindenburg report on the Adani Group of industries, as well as allegations of spending of public money from the Life Insurance Corporation of India and State Bank of India to prop up the group. All of this because of the reported proximity between Mr. Adani and the government. All of these accusations were leveled at the government by the opposition. Now, the opposition is demanding the setting up of a Joint Parliamentary Committee, a JPC, to go into the issue. And both houses did not see any business being transacted because of the protests by the opposition demanding the same for several days into the budget session of Parliament. Now, when the House did debate the motion of thanks to the President for her address to a joint sitting of both houses of Parliament, now at the beginning of the year, there is the budget session. The President addresses both houses of Parliament, a joint sitting held in Central Hall, at least in the current Parliament. And the first order of business for the year is always to pass a motion of thanks to the President for her address. Her address is largely about the work of the government as such, and it gives an opportunity for the government and the opposition to debate many issues within the scope of one debate. Obviously, when the opposition is demanding a JPC on the Adani issue, it was likely that that was going to be one of the main issues that the opposition speeches would dwell on. In fact, the government, when it was negotiating with the opposition that the House should be run, there was a lot of business to be transacted, the finance bill has to be passed, etc., said that, when you discuss or debate the motion of thanks to the President, you will have ample opportunity to bring up any subject with respect to the government that you think should be talked about. So it set the stage up for a pyrotechnics-filled affair with face-offs between Congress leader Rahul Gandhi and Prime Minister Modi, who spoke for more than 3 hours. This is both houses of Parliament, both in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. So it made for thrilling Parliament viewership, at least, because I've been covering Parliament for now, I would say 20 years, and it was really great fun to watch all of this unfold before your eyes. Now, Rahul Gandhi's speech, when he spoke on the reported proximity of the government and the Adani Group, saw a lot of it expunged from the record of the Lok Sabha. Many of the phrases and the accusations were expunged by the Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla. Congress leader Jairam Ramesh claimed that 18 remarks were expunged, that many, from the speech of Rahul Gandhi. Outside the House, however, and this we can talk about because since things have been expunged from the record of the House, we can't really comment on what happened. We can't really talk about what was expunged as something that has happened. So therefore, Rahul Gandhi came out of the House and he was free to repeat what he had said and what remained expunged, etc. So he continued to accuse the government of crony capitalism and more. In his response, Prime Minister Modi's speech never once went into the specifics of any allegations or names. But through rhetoric, he answered many of the issues that the opposition had raised. Now, a lot of BJP people have told me that not going into the specifics is very, very wise policy, especially in Parliament, because once you give in and once you start answering specific accusations, then you are basically taking the battle to the from the opposition stuff where you might be handicapped. So the government has always maintained that whatever the issue is with the Adani Group, it is up to the financial regulators like SEBI and RBI to look into it and determine what they need to do. I mean, the government itself as such has nothing to do with it. And they kept to not mentioning any specifics. Prime Minister Modi didn't mention specifics, but he did give back a lot of very veiled digs to the opposition through his speech. Now, he declared that false accusations could not touch him as he had the protective shield of the trust of 140 crore Indians. He said those who are getting free rations under this government, women who are getting access to toilets, free gas connections, people who are building their houses for the first time under PM Awas Yojana, etc., know who to believe and who not to believe. He talked about the Labharti or the beneficiary class, which we have spoken about a lot as a major support group for the BJP on previous episodes of Talking Politics. He harked back to them. He spoke about the record of the previous UPA governments between 2004 and 14, calling it the lost decade for India. He talked about India's growing clout in the global sphere. And in Rajya Sabha, he said he alone was enough to overwhelm and prevail upon all the opposition naysayers together. So he kind of created this one versus all narrative, which has worked very well politically in the past for late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and for Prime Minister Modi himself in the last elections, where he talked about the accusations against him on the Rafale deal, saying that he was responding to the Congress's charge of Chaukidar Chor hai, saying "Main bhi Chaukidar," and that really resonated, and the party won 303 seats in that election. So this me versus all, that everybody was getting together, banding together to attack the Prime Minister on things that he had no direct control over, etc. So that was the narrative that the BJP and the Prime Minister went on with. Now, the details of the speech, especially in the Lok Sabha, conveyed layered meanings. As I said, there were no specific responses to the allegations, but they were veiled digs. One example was that he asked the opposition to do some self-reflection. He said, on the one hand, the opposition had been saying that since 2014, India had grown weaker on the global stage. On the other, the opposition is saying that the Indian government can prevail on foreign countries to do their bidding. Now, this was a reference to accusations by the opposition that countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Israel had been asked to favor the Adani Group in terms of contracts of public utilities. Now, all this, as I said, made for thrilling television because there was all-round heckling in Parliament, a very combative Prime Minister, equally combative opposition, and as a political journalist, this is great for me to watch this political back and forth. But I, even as a seasoned political journalist who's been covering politics for, I would say, 23 years, I was more than a little intrigued about the sections of the rules of the Book of Parliamentary Procedure on just how expunctions happen, because so many things being expunged from a major leader's speech is kind of unprecedented. Not just Rahul Gandhi, even leader of the opposition, Mallikarjun Kharge's speech in the Rajya Sabha, he's also Congress president, please remember, saw parts of it being expunged. Now, what are the rules of expunging? According to my colleague Sandeep Hukan's comprehensive story on the issue, he wrote that Speaker Birla said on Wednesday that unsubstantiated allegations on the floor of the House were not to be entertained. He did not take Rahul Gandhi's name directly, but he said, and I quote, "Yesterday, until late evening, many honorable members participated in the discussion on the motion of thanks. Some members spoke on issues that fell outside the subject of the President's address and misused the House to make points without any evidence or proof." That is the unsubstantiated part. "This is not in keeping with the dignity of the House," he said. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi also spoke on the issue. He asserted that Rahul Gandhi did not follow parliamentary practice of giving advance notice if he wanted to make any allegations against an individual, especially an individual who's not a member of the House, that is Mr. Gautam Adani. So this brings us to rule number 380, which is expunction of the rules of procedure and conduct of business in the Lok Sabha. And I quote, "If the Speaker is of the opinion that words have been used in debate which are defamatory or indecent or unparliamentary or undignified, the Speaker may while exercising discretion, order that such words be expunged from the proceedings of the House. So Speaker Birla leaned on this when he mentioned unsubstantiated allegations. Rule 381 says the portion of proceedings of the House so expunged shall be marked by asterisks, and an explanatory footnote shall be inserted in the proceedings as followed: expunged as per the chair, as by the chair. Now, despite the expansion, the issue made news all of last week because you can expunge a lot of things within the Lok Sabha, but there is nothing stopping anybody from coming outside and talking about it, which is what the Congress did. And basically, this issue dominated all the days that the Parliament session lasted, the first part of the budget session. And I have a feeling that both the opposition and the government will have to deal with this issue going a bit into the future now, because this year will see 9 assembly polls, and the opposition is determined to make these accusations a part of its campaign in various elections. I've already seen a lot of rhetoric around this coming up in the Karnataka assembly polls already. Campaigning has already begun, and elections are due in April, May. So already opposition is mounting a campaign around it, and especially around the 2024 polls. Now, the BJP is equally determined to make sure that the Prime Minister's speeches in Parliament, which came with two big messages: A, that the support of the people who are beneficiaries, who have benefited from the policies of this government, have retained trust in him, and that it is him versus all, which has also gained him a lot of sympathy among his supporters and those who feel that his government is doing a good job. Those are the two messages that the BJP will go forward with in terms of narrative on this issue further. Now, but I will myself go by what a senior opposition member told me when I asked whether this issue had any staying power. Now, that person told me that it all depends on the opposition, if they manage to strategize correctly, if they stay united, because there are opposition parties who have relationships, different relationships with industrial groups across the country, and whether or not everybody will be on the same page in order to corner the government remains to be seen. Prime Minister Modi's popularity and his image is a tough challenge to take on. And the last two general elections have demonstrated that the more the campaign is revolving around him and his popularity and his image, the more it fails. So therefore, the answer lies in the future, whether the opposition can strategize correctly or not. It seems BJP has settled its strategy in dealing with it. Don't go into specifics and talk about the record of the government. This is all I have for you this week. Thank you for watching.